Today, we're going to dive into a story that's really about the collision between personal choice, societal pressure, and who we think we are. It's a very raw, first-hand account that asks a pretty tough question. What happens when the ideals you hold so dear just smash right into the life you actually end up living?
And this is the question, right at the heart of it all. But it's not coming from some academic textbook, it's coming from real lived experience. So to really understand how someone gets to a point where they ask this, we need to rewind and start at the beginning of her story.
So let's meet the woman at the center of this story. Before her life took a major turn, she was, a woman with a plan. She was totally career-focused, making good money, and really building a life that was all her own. Independence wasn't just some far-off goal, it was her everyday reality.
But as we all know, life rarely follows the script we write for it. Her world, which she had so carefully built, was just thrown into complete chaos because of a health crisis. It all started with this sudden, really intense pain that she just couldn't ignore. So after some tests, the diagnosis was in, it was an ovarian cyst, and it was big enough to require surgery. Now this wasn't just another medical procedure. This was the one event that would kick off this whole cascade of decisions and pressures she absolutely never saw coming.
Okay, so after the surgery, she has a follow-up with her doctor. But the advice she got, well, it went way beyond just medical recovery. It was basically a prescription for her entire future, and it was deeply, deeply rooted in cultural expectations.
Now, this is where things get really fascinating. This one statement from the doctor frames the entire conversation. It was presented as a medical fact, as a foundational belief. It had nothing to do with her desires or her life plans. It was all about fulfilling what was seen as a biological and social duty.
And you can just feel the pressure mounting here. I mean, this wasn't a discussion, it was a series of warnings. First, marry now or your fertility is at risk. Second, if you wait, you'll end up with a much older husband and you'll be stuck dealing with his health problems. And then the real kicker, the one designed to spark fear. If anything goes wrong in the future, the blame will be on you because you waited.
And just to really hammer the point home, the doctor threw in this little comment. The message was crystal clear. The rules are different for you. Society has a path laid out, and you don't have the power or the status to go against it. It's just a shocking reminder of how big societal norms can feel in a small, personal moment like that.
So, faced with this barrage of warnings, her whole way of thinking just shifted. Her choices stopped being about her career or independence. They became about one thing: how to avoid this awful future she was just told about, one filled with illness, loneliness, and blame. This just perfectly captures the tug-of-war going on in her head. On one side, you've got the feminist ideals she'd built her whole life on, being self-reliant, making her own choices. And on the other side, just this powerful wave of fear. In her words, believe me, at that moment I was very scared. And that fear, it became the deciding factor.
And so she made a choice, and she uses this exact phrase to describe it. She stepped out of the cycle of feminism. In her mind, it felt like she had to completely abandon one identity to protect herself from the future the doctor had painted for her. It was a trade-off, for sure, made under an incredible amount of pressure.
So, she did it. She got married. But the reality of this new life, it quickly started to look very different from the simple solution she was promised. It came with a whole new set of rules and expectations that were a world away from her previous life. And this was the thought that hit her almost immediately. That independent life she had worked so hard to create for herself was gone. And in its place was a brand new role, defined by a set of duties that she quickly realized were hers and hers alone.
So what did this new life actually look like? Well, it was a daily grind of domestic work. Cooking, cleaning, washing dishes. And these things weren't just chores. They were constant, daily symbols of the independent life she had left behind. They felt like obligations, not choices, like a new job she never even applied for.
And then she started noticing all the little double standards. For example, she was now expected to wear a sari in public, a very clear, visual signal to every stranger out there that she was married. But for her husband, nothing, no requirement at all. His identity got to stay exactly the same.
When you put it all together, the decision made out of fear, the loss of her independence, all the unequal duties, it led her to this really profound internal crisis. She started to seriously question who she was and whether her life choices made her a bad feminist.
And what's so powerful here is the disconnect she was feeling. She'd hear the slogans, she'd see the banners for the feminist movement talking all about equality. But then in her own home, in her day-to-day life, she was living a completely different story. Those grand ideals just feel a million miles away from a pile of dishes in the sink.
And so that brings us right back to the beginning, but with so much more context now. Her story doesn't give us any easy answers. Instead, it forces us to wrestle with a much bigger question. When our ideals clash with our very real fears, our health, and the incredible weight of what society expects from us, what does being a feminist even mean? Her story suggests that maybe, just maybe, the definition is a whole lot more complex and personal than any slogan can ever capture.